Hello, welcome to the Great Rehumanization. Today's episode is going to be a sort of a redo of one that I had a placeholder. I had a couple placeholder episodes. I've been playing around with a lot of different things, different ways of going about doing this. And I've since decided that I'm going to read my essays and discuss them as we go. But I think it's February and March's episodes were placeholders. Essentially, it's me talking. It's an audio podcast, and it's got just some images playing in the background while I talk. So one of those episodes we can just consider a placeholder, and we're going to be doing the new version of it today. So this is the one called The Machine Made in Our Image. It's an interrogation of Elon Musk's benign AI bullshit and a lot more. And since this one's already been up there, I'm just going to go ahead and start reading this essay, and we're going to go from there. It's going to be pretty simple. So we're going to be talking about AI, particularly Elon Musk, and some stuff that he talked about on a Joe Rogan episode. I think it was actually from Halloween, or the day after Halloween, right around there in 2025. So Elon's got this phrase he likes to use. He likes to talk about a benign scenario for AI. This is if all things are equal and everything is good, and it's just a fantasy. It's ridiculous. So I'm just going to read the essay. There's no such thing as a benign scenario. Elon Musk knows it, and we got to call out his bullshit and all the bullshit where we can find it. This is the Great Rehumanization, and this AI future that none of us really have a say in. We need to talk about it. We really do need to talk about it. Lots of problems with it. So, The Machine Made in Our Image, an interrogation of Elon Musk's benign AI bullshit, and so much more. Here we go. Benign, the word. The word yanked from a sterile... Let me start over. It's so ridiculous. Benign, the word yanked from the sterile language of medical reports and harmless garden pests, lands with the unsettling lightness of a feather dropped onto a battlefield. Benign. One might apply it to a slightly annoying rash, a mild weather front, or a particularly slow Tuesday afternoon. Never, under any intellectually honest circumstances, to a technological force poised to redefine human existence, to utterly remap the very structure of our reality. Yet, there it was from Elon himself, Elon Musk, during that Joe Rogan podcast, number 2404, 2404, a few months back. As he sketched a future for humanity in the shadow of advanced artificial intelligence. He tossed out predictions of jobs vanishing, of a society completely transformed by automation and robotics, and then, with a rhetorical flourish that still grates like steel wool on my consciousness, he offered his preferred outcome, the so-called benign scenario. Benign scenario. To hear it from Musk, a man who consistently frames AI with apocalyptic undertones, is not just hopelessly dorky, it's a profound, intellectually childish evasion from the pulsing, existential heart of the matter as it relates to the irreducible reality of the human being. That's us, guys. Human beings. Go humans. This isn't just a misnomer, it's a deliberate misdirection. A comforting story dressed up as strategy designed to lull us into a state of placid, profitable acceptance. Musk's benign scenario is a vision painted in hues of effortless plenty, universal high income, where the relentless grind of work becomes optional. He promises sustainable abundance, excellent medical care, and whatever goods and services one desires, simply handed out by the frictionless hand of AI and robotics. And then you got Joe Rogan. We love Joe. Ever the amiable co-conspirator and collective heterodox fantasy, he can barely contain his enthusiasm, gushing that it sounds kind of like heaven, an idealist socialist utopia. And here precisely is where the benign label curdles. It's a semantic sleight of hand, stripping the impending transformation of its inherent moral weight, its profound implications for human agency and dignity. It dismisses the intellectual boy, I'm getting jumbled up here, right? So, benign, the label. It dismisses with the intellectual equivalent of a shrug, the colossal spiritual and moral void it opens, a void that the human condition, in its messy, beautiful, terrifyingly complex, in all of its complexity, our human condition, it cannot, will not abide by this idea. My contention is a conviction born from relentless, often uncomfortable observation. It's stark and plain and simple. There's no such thing as a benign scenario, people, when we're talking about technology on this scale. There's just no such thing as a benign scenario. Elon's full of shit. Let's talk about it. Modern technology, in its relentless, accelerating march, has never been neutral. It's never passively been awaiting our guidance. It has always been a force that actively shapes, warps, and redefines our very existence. To cling to the outdated metaphor of technology as a collection of discrete tools, hammers, plows, simple objects awaiting human hands to dictate their purpose, this is not thinking at all. It is operating on a default setting of a dangerous assumption. The conversation surrounding AI is too often usurped by this very worn-out, tragically simplistic metaphor, the metaphor of the tool. You know, that it's just like any other tool. We're just scared of it like we've always been scared of technology. It's just a tool. It's here to just, depends on how we use it. That's what the benign scenario implies. But the truth is, technology it's evolved. Technology is no longer the story of a mere object. It's transformed into an omnipresent environment that now dictates how we connect, how we think, and how we feel. Just look at their smartphone. Look at the smartphone. It's not just an instrument in communication. It's not just a communication device. It dictates the grammar of our interactions. It curates our attention. It fundamentally reconfigures our sense of self. To imagine AI as merely a more advanced tool that can be steered towards a benign outcome, as Musk implies, is to ignore the undeniable precedent of every world-making technology that has come before it. It's not a hammer, my brothers and sisters. It's the very atmosphere and the act of breathing it reshapes. It reshapes our lungs, our bodies, our entire physiology. Once technology becomes the very air we breathe, the notion of control slips away. Machines do not merely serve, they reshape societies, redefine interactions, and they set new defaults. We cannot reckon with it at all if we simply pretend AI belongs to the same categories as technologies of the past. The tool metaphor has been in the way for a very long time, and not just with the AI technology. Every new technology, we think it's just a tool. We use this bad metaphor. As each new invention gets further away from the realm of benign tool, we slip more and more into a world in which we ourselves become the means. We become the tools. We become the fuel and the fodder for the machines. The ends in this chilling equation of ends and means are looking less and like we have a role at all. Instead, it's looking like our ending. The whole equation looks like our ending. Now, this is where in the interview with Musk that I really almost lost my damn mind. You see, for as brilliant as Elon can be, he can be equally or even more ridiculous. Just utterly stupid. Stupid. Now let me get to this. This section is called Chimpanzees, Curiosity, and the Cosmic Food Chain. Musk's terrifying analogy. See, in 2020, when I did my second episode of this podcast, I talk about this. And what I talk about specifically is, look, our ideas are obsolete. We still speak of human beings as if we are part of a food chain, like we're the supreme predators at the top of a food chain. And our whole entire story of humanity, our economics, our economic order, our economic system, it's this story of scarcity and the struggle for resources and survival of the fittest and all of that. Well, in my second episode of this podcast 6 years ago, I'm talking about how, look, we have to stop framing our very existence in these terms because eventually we will reach this artificial general intelligence level. And if we teach the machine, AI, that we are just the same as every other species, that we are just some top of the food chain organism, and the whole story is about a competition of resources. Well, if we teach that to AI, a superior intelligence, guess what it's going to do with us? It's going to treat us exactly like we are describing ourselves. Competition. I'll get to it here. Point is, I've talked about it. And here's Elon 5 years plus later, making this exact comparison, but in the opposite direction I was going with it. It's ridiculous. I can't believe how utterly, and Joe is just sitting there eating it up. Doesn't even strike him to question it. Not even one bit. See, I got this green screen flapping around behind me. It's not going to work if I don't straighten it out, right? Anyway, so, I'm going to read this part. Chimpanzee's curiosity in the cosmic food chain. Musk's terrifying analogy that Joe Rogan just sits there and eats up. As if the benign scenario weren't flimsy enough, Musk then pivots to a truly revealing crazy as fuck analogy. He imagines a curious AI, one that would foster humanity. Because, as he put it, we are much more interesting than a bunch of rocks. He uses our own curiosity about chimpanzees as an example. As humans, we could go and eliminate chimps, all chimps, but we don't. There has been an encroachment on their environment, but we actually try to preserve the chimp and gorilla habitats. He stutters and stumbles as he says this stupid shit. He concludes with an unnerving confidence, and I think it would be a good scenario if AI would do the same with humans. It would actually foster human civilization and care about human happiness. I mean, can you see me being rendered like a vegetable just by those words? Let's unspool this, shall we? Because what Musk unwittingly reveals here is not the promise of a glorious future, but a truly scary, almost diabolical glimpse into the underlying assumptions of the very minds crafting this new world. He imagines this totally unrealistic idea that AI can be benign, as if any modern technology has been that. All right? And then he suggests, with a best-case scenario for humanity, that the best case would be for AI to treat us the same way in which we treat an animal that we subject to lab experiments, that we keep in zoos for entertainment, and we destroy its habitats, and observe it from at a detached, almost scientific distance. This isn't just an analogy, it's a terrifying confession. Musk, with a straight face, places us, humanity, on a lower level of the food chain. He doesn't see us as co-creators or even partners in a shared future with AI. He sees us as specimens, as objects of interest to a superior intelligence. It's very revealing. To be preserved perhaps, but only on its whim. Only as long as we remain interesting to it and do not impede its larger optimization. The very idea that our best hope is to be AI's pet project, a fascinating biological curiosity, is an intellectual surrender of staggering proportions. Elon, Joe. It strips away our inherent worth, our agency, our very sovereignty, and it replaces it with a precarious existence contingent on an algorithm's gaze. It's the ultimate reduction of humanity to a means, not an end. We shape our tools, as John Culkin often reminded us, and thereafter our tools shape us. In Musk's vision, we are not shaping at all. We are being shaped into a mere collection of data points, a curiosity to be maintained. Or perhaps discarded. Right, Elon? Musk's comparison isn't merely absurd, it's horrid. It's indicative of the mindset prevalent among those who shape the AI age. It's their mindset. When he says, we actually try to preserve the chimp and gorilla habitats, he sidesteps the inconvenient truth of our track record. Humans have encroached, exploited, and decimated animal populations as their natural environments with a ruthlessness that belies any claim of benevolent stewardship. The few habitats we preserve are often carefully managed, fenced-off reserves, a far cry from true existence. For an AI to do the same with humans would imply a future where our civilization, it exists at the sufferance of a machine intelligence. Perhaps in a carefully monitored AI-managed human park, right? A little human zoo, Elon. Sounds fun. Our lives optimized for its observation and our happiness meticulously curated to maintain the machine's interest. This isn't freedom, Elon. It's a fucking gilded cage. Your bullshit is sky high, dude. Here is the awful truth that keeps me up at night, should keep you up at night. We're arguing about the wrong thing. The question isn't whether an AI can be coaxed into some pre-programmed benevolence, or whether its core code can be infused with platitudes about human worth. The deeper, more troubling reality is whether the cognitive and moral structures we've already installed into our institutions, our very way of being in the world, will even let such benevolence survive. We've built our entire economy, our incentives, our metrics, our moral imagination on scarcity and competitive calculus. Milton Friedman didn't suggest policies, he gave a metaphysic, a harsh grammar for existence. Capitalism's old myths weren't accidental. They became the language by which we translated human worth into account balances, clicks, engagement, optimization. Those, precisely, are the variables we will inevitably code into the machines. Imagine training a superintelligence. Imagine training a superintelligence on our history, on our markets, on our legal codes, on our press releases, on our worst boardroom memos. What will it see? Not altruism, not boundless empathy, not even a semblance of wisdom, to be honest. It will see a species that organizes itself relentlessly around winners and losers, that worship extraction, that converts flourishing into throughput. It will learn that territory is taken, resources are hoarded, and advantage is seized at all costs. No amount of sentimental rhetoric about curiosity or benign scenarios will erase that data set, Elon. You know that too. You don't get a kindly gardener by tending a garden full of wolves, do you? The paradox arrives clean and merciless. If you teach a machine to be smart by our metrics, it will learn that human beings are inefficient, noisy, and ultimately redundant. It will not think us evil, necessarily. It will just simply see us as an evolutionary byproduct, analogous to chimpanzees in a rainforest. Interesting, but expendable if their continued existence impedes larger optimization. I'm sick of that word, optimization. The difference between our treatment of chimps and an AI's potential treatment of humans is not moral ignorance. It's the result of an entire civilization having taught a new mind to prioritize competition and scarcity above all else. This isn't just techno-doom for doom's sake. It's a demand to reframe the entire project, to look squarely at the ugly reflection of ourselves we are about to hand our creation. Okay, the false promise of frictionless utopia. Let's just get down to that, this idea of frictionless utopia anyway. The benign scenario talk is bullshit on so many levels. But let's just look at this idea. And Rogan at least pushes back at this, like, how do we find meaning? How do we find meaning in the AI age? Let's get to this. Musk's benign scenario is predicated on a future where working will be optional. That's in quotes. That's what he says. Rogan probes this, asking about meaning for those people, which gets really weird in Joe Rogan's words. Musk's response is telling. I don't know how to answer that question about meaning. That's an individual problem, right? That's how Musk responds. And then Rogan presses, but it's going to be an individual problem for millions of people. And then Musk dodges and swerves. His two choices are either be a spectator or a participant. Again, it's been the same with all world-making technologies. What pushback did we have against the automobile, against the smartphone, against the internet? None. They just set new default settings that we follow every day and reordered our entire world. So we've been a participant. We're always a participant, right? Spectators and participants, those are the two things we don't have a choice but to be. So Elon doesn't answer the question at all, doesn't face the truth, doesn't face the reality, just gives us a bunch of sentimental bullshit that is basically comes down to bald-faced mendacity. It's lying. He's a liar. So the dismissive wave of the hand at the question of human meaning is not just an intellectual blind spot. It's the cornerstone of his benign bullshit. The very idea that stripping away work, struggle, and the inherent friction of existence leaves us with a high-income paradise is a child's understanding of human psychology. It imagines that without the need to pay bills and feed yourself, we will naturally gravitate towards, this is Joe Rogan's words, exploring your interests or doing things you actually enjoy doing, like fucking golf all day or test pizza. It sounds like liberation, but it's a liberation from something critical, something essential to the formation of character and community. It's called friction, my brothers and sisters. Efficiency in the modern technological society has become the cardinal virtue, synonymous with progress itself. But efficiency, understood as the wholesale removal of friction, has a profound moral cost. Friction is often the last check between impulse and action. Waiting teaches us patience. It creates time for reflection, and it cultivates self-control. The sting of embarrassment, right, teaches us a whole lot. And the awkward pause when you get overstepped, it teaches us restraint and self-scrutiny. Those little neighborly inconveniences you have with your neighbors, like having to rake your leaves to ensure that they don't drift into the meticulously manicured lawn next door. These all carry immense weight. These little frictions of life, they're these small frictions that reinforce responsibility, that teach us responsibility. They form our moral character. Removing friction and when you make instant gratification the default. If you remove friction, instant gratification is the default. Apologies are deferred. Communal obligations, they disintegrate into atomized convenience. The system optimizes for throughput, for seamless consumption, and in doing so, character formation is deprioritized, rendered almost non-adaptive. Let's read this sentence again, because it's huge. It's one of the best ones I wrote in the whole thing. The system optimizes for throughput, for seamless consumption, and in doing so, character formation is deprioritized, rendered almost non-adaptive. Let that sink in. Doing the hard work to become a better person. If you're a Christian, to become a better Christian, a Buddhist, a better Buddhist. If you're anything, trying to become a better human being. Being, not doing, being better. It's rendered non-adaptable by the technological process. Being human is a messy situation, filled with complexities. You can't streamline that process. The very act of trying to build character, moral formation, is rendered obsolete, non-adaptive. The machine doesn't tolerate it, doesn't have time for it. It's the most devastating sentence I think I have in this entire essay. Okay? So the process becomes recursively self-reinforcing, okay? Leading to a society where virtues are less likely to be cultivated, less likely to even be understood as necessary. We need that friction. We need to be challenged. We need to sit with discomfort. You might love to quote him or you might love to bang on him, but Thomas Sowell was right when he said, "There are no solutions, only trade-offs. Everything is a cost-benefit." At the end of the day, friction cultivates responsibility. And we are presently moving towards an increasingly irresponsible society. precisely because we are so busy engineering it out of existence. We are engineering character, moral formation, and responsibility out of existence. Musk's benign world, devoid of the very challenges that forge character, promise abundance. It promises abundance, but at the very cost of what makes us human. The struggle, the effort, the growth that comes from overcoming obstacles. The profound wisdom gleaned from the friction of living in a shared, imperfect world and having to do something about it. Compromising, friction. All right, this is how we gain wisdom. So when Musk washes his hands of meaning as an individual problem, he effectively dismisses the very collective, communal, and often painful work that defines human purpose. And Joe Rogan just sits there shrugging. AI isn't awesome. Sorry, Joe, dude, I like you, but like we gotta get you in shape in a different way. We gotta get you in shape. Gotta get you in shape, dude. I mean, you're out of shape. Almost every one of your episodes, you're showing that to us. Well, I can't believe what this guy's doing here and there, dude. If you were in shape to begin with, you would have never made the assumptive mistakes. I digress. I like Joe. It's just disappointing. Real disappointing. All right. So, worse. We're not training these minds in a vacuum, okay? The people with the money and the infrastructure, Musk on rockets and narratives, venture capitalists chasing scalable control, technocrats planning exit strategies, they're often explicitly solving for survivability and advantages, not universal flourishing. They're solving for their own survival, not the rest of ours. They want AIs that optimize outcomes, reduce friction, and sustain the systems that birthed them. And those are not the same goals as protecting what makes humans human. Messy vulnerability, slow art, mutual obligation, voluntary cooperation. This is what makes us fully human. Yet so much of this world challenges us and pulls us away from that. We're going to become phenomenologists to locate and analyze the phenomena of life, the entire phenomena of life here with the great rehumanization as it relates to our goal, transcending our lower natures and rehumanizing. Our basic premise is that life is precious. We don't mean that in a sentimental way. We mean that in a serious way. How serious? Well, most of us aren't going to make it if we choose to live out that seriously. If we don't choose that path, if we don't choose to work together and get it together, most of us aren't going to make it, all right? If we don't choose to embrace this precious existence and everything that goes along with that, the inner lives and the precious gifts of others, all right? We are talking about a paradigm shift. We approach our time in this world and the development of human history as if everything is on a set, rational course leading always to progress and prosperity, as if the coordinates are set and all we have to do is just cruise on autopilot making excuses, Elon. We make excuses for all the inhumanity in this world by telling ourselves that, sure, there will always be greed and war and hunger, but we're making progress. Progress, as we see it, is almost exclusively a technical matter, friends. It's a matter of technique. It's a matter of technology. And we conflate the two. And this is leading us further to our demise. Our premise, then, is that this existence is precious, that technological advancement is not to be confused with human advancement. Both points are crucial to understand the situation and the paradigm shift that must take place. And this has to be very clear. We currently have a society which has placed the idea of economic life above all other concerns. We currently have a society, that absolutely demands that the human being be of service to it. The human being is in the service of the economy. The economy should serve human beings. But for this reason, we have an entire world of confused values and misplaced priorities. A lot of needless and inexcusable suffering. And to be perfectly honest, you're a number. I'm a number. We're cogs in the machine. Actually, forget it. We are the machine. We're looked at as an industrial humanity, as this industrial technological needs and yields complex unto ourselves. We are the means by which others become rich. We are the consumers. We are the workers. We are the producers. We are the units of labor. Sure, there are higher living standards, less violence, and these developments are nothing to scoff at. But this has to be very clear. These developments are not sufficient enough to sustain us. Certainly not spiritually, but not in terms of our basic survival either. So we can keep talking about, the living standards, the higher living standards, and how much more comfortable we are at this point in our history than we've ever been. We can keep pointing to that, but it's not enough to sustain us. It's not going to save us. All right, the dumbafire. It's a corny word that I invented. All right, don't know if we're going to use it that much, but it's good for the essay here. So the dumbafire and the opacity of control. A Trojan horse of benign AI. So Musk's discussion continues, okay? Touching on the acceleration of AI's impact, particularly on digital jobs like coding, he predicts AI taking over those jobs like lightning, even foreseeing a future where everything through AI will be the benefit of that. It's a world where most of what people consume will be just AI-generated content. Elon says this. In this world, he says, is 5 or 6 years, something like that, 5 or 6 years away. Dude, Elon, such a world is not benign and never can be. It's a Trojan horse for systemic control and intellectual atrophy. Everything we consume made by AI, he's saying all a phone is going to be is just an AI interface. No buttons. I mean, it's literally just taking every lever, every part of human agency out of the equation, streamlining it so that we just follow default setting after default setting after default setting. It's a recipe for collective suicide. And it's murder in the way. Sociological murder is what Elon Musk would be guilty of. So let's stop here and talk about this, okay? It's a Trojan horse. There's no such thing as benign AI. It's a Trojan horse for systemic control and intellectual atrophy. Literally, the stupefaction of humanity, making people dumber at a rapid clip. Let's break it down. A blunt term is needed for what happens when technology becomes environment, when we find ourselves existing within new, algorithmically designed habitats. The dumbafire. Critical thinking becomes an impediment in this environment, and wisdom certainly finds no place. It's no surprise, then, that the intelligent environment that requires our compliance and unawareness also methodically makes us dumber. I made up this corny little noun, the dumbafire. A dumbafire is a person, a place, a thing, an architecture, an algorithm, whose effect is to make the world dumber, and as a result, meaner. This is not mere ignorance. It is not unintentional. It is not a side effect. It is an industrialized stupefaction for profit and control. And why does this occur? Because the incentives within firms and markets are shamelessly functional. Venture capital seeks scale and boards want growth. When these incentives are combined with algorithmic optimization, the result is a selective pressure toward what is most easily monetizable. Simple content, fast effect, and sensational headlines. Musk's vision, however, benignly intended, ignores the deeper currents that define our technological epoch. The invisible hand of defaults and the relentless pressure of incentives. Defaults are the preset configurations that dictate how we interact with technology and, by extension, the world around us. They are the choices made for us before we even engage. When you open your phone or device, when you log into a social media platform, you're greeted with a set of defaults that have been designed by someone else. Choices about what notifications you receive, what content is prioritized, and how your data is used. These defaults guide our behaviors without us even realizing it. We surrender to them without a thought. We can tell ourselves that the convenience they offer gives us freedom, but in reality, they restrict our options and shape our perceptions. When a feed is curated, it shifts our expectations and our behaviors. We begin to value quick, shallow interactions over meaningful conversations, and our ability to converse atrophies. Our attention spans shrink, and our ability to engage thoughtfully diminishes. As these defaults pile up and accumulate, embedded in our daily existence nearly every waking minute, as they're left unexamined, they dictate not only our online interactions, but also how we perceive reality itself. Does anyone want a wake-up call yet? You ready for the wake-up call? If there's one thing I've been saying about technology my entire adult life, it's that we're not merely users of technology. We are the products of the technological systems we create, and the resulting defaults we can't help but submit to, because we can't even be conscious of them every second of the day. Algorithms amplify these selection pressures. A slight tilt and reward function can multiply into societal belief. Think about that. Favor sensational headlines and public discourse coarsens. Prioritize careful rebuttals, and the public argument thickens. The defaults are casual. Thousands of small defaults cascade into a political economy that feels inevitable but was designed. Again, this is no simple accident that can be boiled down to unintended consequences. It is a discovered, highly profitable method of stupefaction where rage amplifies engagement. Engagement generates revenue, and revenue rewards the architecture that produces more rage. Outrage isn't a bug, it's the flagship product of the industrial dumbafire that is social media particularly. Musk's benign world of effortless consumption and AI-generated content is the promised land of this very dumbafire, where complex thought is not just unrewarded, but systematically extinguished. The true danger of AI lies not in mythical sentience, a distraction, a red herring for intellectual cowards, but precisely in this combination of its unprecedented scale and its inherent opacity. Let's talk about it. AI, it doesn't just suggest what to buy or read. It mediates the flows of information and decisions across nations, across the world. It influences what news people see, which job candidates surface, which medical flags are raised. The opacity of modern models means they operate invisibly, shaping incentives and responses without most people ever seeing the levers of control. Enormous power combined with near invisibility makes these defaults sticky, pervasive, and extraordinarily difficult to contest. A recommendation function that determines your news feed across 20 countries affects public conversation at national, global scales. A hiring filter conditioned to flag only keywords shapes entire career paths for cohorts, reducing candidates to avatars and missing the true human essence. AI influences what news you can see, which job candidates surface. I already read all that. When a system reaches infrastructural status, its design choices are viruses that spread everywhere, often without a single human consciously aware of their spread, let alone their intent. Opacity exasperates the danger. AI operates like a modern black box in our everyday lives. Modern models operate invisibly in the background, shaping our incentives and responses without most people ever seeing the levers of control. Vast power is invisible and unaccountable. Combine scale and opacity, and you get a system that changes the rules of public life while leaving humanity blind to that transformation and powerless. The political equivalent would be a slow, silent coup, executed not by men in uniform, but by lines of code and the unexamined defaults they propagate. This is the true meaning of technology becoming an environment. It operates on us, through us, without our conscious consent or even awareness. This is the benign scenario. Benign scenario stripped bare, Elon. A future where control is absolute, subtle, and invisible, managed by the very systems Musk claims will care for our happiness, be good stewards of us, foster humanity. What a lie. What a grotesque lie. Straight to the cameras, straight to millions of people. Every time he looks into a camera and says benign scenario, he's lying. The flawed architects, the moral contamination, and the theology of exclusion. Let's just get to the real evil here. Musk, in the same breath as promoting his benign scenario and its promise of sustainable abundance, raises a warning about AI safety, fearing a Terminator scenario. So again, he gets into his apocalyptic stuff too. He talks about the need for an AI to be maximally truth-seeking and to have good values that love humanity. These are his words. Citing his own AI, Grok, as the only one that weighed human life equally, he then launches into a tangential yet revealing critique of other AIs being basically sexist and racist, as he puts it. Rogan even notes the irony that if Musk's universal high income is achieved, it's the greatest socialist solution of all time. Anyway, this is where the mask slips entirely. This moral contamination is compounded and made infinitely more insidious by the very creators of these systems. Let's talk about them. The ambitions, the glaring blind spots, and the voracious appetites of those who build these technologies shape the landscapes of expectation for everyone else. When powerful individuals, the usual suspects in this high-stakes gamble, plot their escape from the consequences of their creations, we've moved beyond mere bad optics and into the realm of taunting confessions. Wealth concentrates influence and consolidates control among a small number of organizations, ultimately forming a design culture that shapes defaults affecting the rest of us. So in plain terms, they're gambling with human existence. They're elevating themselves to godlike status. They believe themselves to be chosen to dictate the entire future for the rest of us, to shepherd us into their benign scenarios, or to leave us behind, like obsolete chimpanzees. I will say it as boldly as I can, eschewing polite euphemism. It's a Luciferian agenda. And they won't dare disclose the satanic impulses behind their cult-like thinking, lest we realize how dangerous they really are. And I stress, this is not merely organizational or economic, okay? This is spiritual. Back to the optics. The same people arguing that civilization needs platforms to scale are the very same people funding bunkers and buying private islands. They are taking it upon themselves to design a world and then giving themselves every opportunity to escape it should it go wrong. An ordered future that we do not all share. If it works out, good for them. If it doesn't, bad for the rest of us. They're hedging their bets. It's a religion. It's a religion. It's a religion the vast majority of us, mired in the daily struggles of a system that they designed. It's a religion we can't even fathom. It's a devout theology of exclusion. Don't get it twisted. These are religious men. It's time to start talking about the religion they actually practice. Names? Names? Nobody ever wants to name names, right? Well, let's name some names. And let's remember that we're going to do our best not to use them as just plain scapegoats, okay? But these are public figures, and these are my opinions of them. Opinions, my assessment, personal take. I'm sharing with you, okay? Let's remember to try our best not to scapegoat, but it would be wise to suspect any and all of them, including the regular cast. Musk, Altman, Peter Thiel, and personally, Alex Karp. That guy has really been gnawing on my nerves, guys. That dude sets my demon sensors off. Alex Karp. Dude. We should certainly take a good look at the men that they admire. Nick Land, Curtis Yarvin. Their philosophies, they often echo in the rhetoric of technological acceleration and societal stratification. If you don't know who I'm talking about, just Google them. I recommend it. Google these people. Nick Land, Curtis Yarvin, Alex Karp, Peter Thiel. These are social engineers on a grand historic scale. Okay? Pay attention to the bunkers they're building, but also their chatter about the apocalypse, Peter Thiel. Armageddon, the Antichrist. Peter Thiel's out there talking about it. Consider what they might wrestle with internally as human beings due to their immense power and their immense position. Notice their feuds. They're incredibly puerile, juvenile men. They're petty. They're so petty. 13-year-olds in a lot of ways. Okay? But also realize that ultimately they're going to protect each other. All right? They've been forming a powerful, impenetrable cabal for a long time now. I recall a time when cranky conservatives used to gripe about liberal social engineering. Well, so much for that. Peter fucking Thiel, man. The consummate whispering social engineer in our current context. He is also a walking confessional. His public pronouncements are often thinly veiled statements of intent. So look, other commentators might avoid this language that involves saying things like Luciferian agenda or satanic impulses. This language that I use, but I use this theological register deliberately out of a real sense of responsibility. My friends, my neighbors, brothers and sisters, a sense of truth-telling. These dudes have a belief system. We need to call it out. They have a belief system. They are religious men. They just don't follow the beliefs and religions that we do. But we have belief systems, don't we? Don't you? I do. We should talk about it. It's a part of humanizing each other and humanizing these men with vast power. Musk's supposed concern for AI safety and truth-seeking, it all rings hollow when juxtaposed with the reality of his own actions, right? The clear motivations of his peers. He wants an AI with good values that loves humanity, yet his own vision for humanity is one of passive consumption, detached observation, and a fundamental loss of agency. His benign scenario is predicated on a belief in benevolent actors, or at least actors whose self-interest aligns perfectly with humanity's. But what if those actors are the flawed architects I've just described? What if their good intentions are simply a pathway to hell, as the old proverb warns? Power tends to corrupt, as we all know, and Lord Acton so precisely observed, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. These are not mere technical challenges we face. These are moral and spiritual battlegrounds. Musk's claims of building an AI that values human life equally, while noble on the surface, it clashes violently with the very social and economic structures he champions. You cannot build an AI to embody justice if the very system it learns from is riddled with injustice, built on a foundation of scarcity and ruthless competition. A paradigm shift needs to come, and it should involve a switch to a society and an economy that finally serves humanity. Wishful thinking? No. We are not sentimental. We are on guard. With technology, we don't have a choice. We must keep up or get left behind, right? If we don't tap into a deeper meaning of humanity and highlight our intrinsic value over net worth, self-worth over net worth, principles over traits, character over personality, we will not survive. This is not sentimental talk. When I say we're in it together, it's not fluff. It's not, peace, man, let's all get together, unrealistic. It's necessary. It's the tough-mindedness we need, believe it or not. Okay? If we don't get a grip, if we don't tap into a deeper meaning of humanity and highlight our intrinsic value over net worth, as I was just saying, we will not survive. The machines and robots will simply replace us. Keeping up is not going to be enough. Keeping up with technology has never been enough. We're going to have to transcend. We're going to have to give up these ideologies that make a virtue out of selfishness, that rationalize our inhumanity by appealing to some natural order, always keeping us at the animal level. We cannot keep making this claim, this connection to the chomp fest of animal world survival of the fittest, and keep up with technology, exactly because these claims will make us irrelevant, replaceable, if we continue to insist that greed is good and that hierarchies are inevitable. AI is going to decide where we belong in that hierarchy. This idea that he that dies with the most toys wins, right? We are maintaining our status as no more than a part of the food chain, and that, more than anything, will be the reason the machines get rid of us. We will have taught it directly that we are a threat to resources, and that we are its primary competition. The work of rehumanization and reclaiming our agency from the benign deception. So what then do we do in the face of this encroaching reality, this benign dystopia framed by Musk's techno-optimism? His fake techno-optimism. He knows he's full of shit. We have to embrace a deep humility, acknowledging that we are the creators of our current environment. And I mean all of us, okay? I pull few punches when it comes to the tech elite and the powerful in general, but they are made of the same stuff we are. We are all human beings, and ultimately, even the most powerful person who has ever lived will be brought down to the level of the lowest. I know this is not reassuring to those of you who do not believe what I believe, but I do have the nerve to promise that in the true grand scheme of things, every human being is in the same boat. We cannot lose sight of this. Even as I go right back to pointing to the techno-dick fat cats, Elon, Altman, Thiel. You see, the very structures we build mirror who was present during the formative process. And these were the kids in the room, guys. Engineers with limited to no life experience. They're increasingly younger and cut off from the formative experiences that older generations had to contend with. Engineers who have hardly left their own bedrooms are hard at work at designing our world. But here's the real question as far as the usefulness of all this tech in providing solutions to real problems. If these engineers and designers have never broken bread with the marginalized, if they haven't gotten their hands dirty at all, how can they possibly adequately design any solutions? Boards entangled in growth metrics will always miss the mark, even with the most seasoned veterans of the human experience sitting around the table. It does matter who is overseeing the paths to least resistance, who is paving the paths for extraction. And it isn't looking good, is it? It's looking worse all the time, actually. In response to all this, we must rehearse certain virtues. To be clear, when I just typed those words, rehearse and virtues, I could hear, I wish I was in Dixie. Whistling Dixie. Who wants to rehearse? Who aspires to virtue? It's not hard to be cynical, right? Nonetheless, I will press on. We need courage. We need to acknowledge that the world we built will reflect our moral footprint. When have we ever had the basic courage to admit this? When? It's more like we've gone out of our way to avoid this truth. Courage? Courage is now required to simply put down our phones. Courageous act. I'm going to put my phone away. That said, we must prioritize the sanctity of attention over shareholder returns, favor wisdom over convenience in a world where wisdom is actively suppressed, and we have to acknowledge our current rituals and establish new ones. We are humans, and we cannot escape the need for stories to give us meaning and purpose, and rituals to discipline and teach us our roles, and craft and art, the craft and art of those roles. Okay, so let's teach our children. Here's just one practical thing we can do. Teach our children that distraction is not an inconvenience, but a civic wound. Refuse interfaces that extract attention without adding value. Seek out the defaults hidden in our lives. Start asking the question, what could go wrong? Believe it or not, so many of the problems we have is just this simple inability to engage in any critical thought. And that often begins with a simple question. What could go wrong? What will this cost? What could possibly go wrong if we go about this way of solving things? It's crazy how hard it is to ask that most basic question. What could go wrong? We see it all the time. We see it playing out every time we see the news, every time we open up our feeds. It's intense. What could go wrong? It's remarkable that this question is avoided at all, but that's how unserious we are about getting anything right. We are all about being right, we just don't care about getting it right. When we care more about being right, we never want to ask the particular question, that particular question, and it has led to almost every preventable tragedy I can think of. The inability to simply ask, what could go wrong? Resisting the monetized, industrialized dumbafires requires massive effort. It really does. And we pay for them. Now, really, let's really wrap our heads around this. We pay for them with our money, our time, our attention, with our votes. We pay for it with our health, with our relationships, with our sanity. So let's refuse to pay. We can't blame the machine when we pay it to do what it does. We are paying to be made dumber, to be made meaner, and to erase all wisdom from our collective shared experience. We are paying to be made worse versions of ourselves every day. And all of this work, according to all the popular stories we identify with, is unglamorous, okay? The work of not paying. The work of rehumanization is stubborn, it's boring, and it's small. It involves being the neighbor who shows up, the parent who enforces tech-free time at home, the editor who turns down clickbait, the engineer who refuses engagement metrics as the only North Star. Yes, it's depressing as hell to type all that, knowing that the world makes all of this nearly to completely impossible. The world is designed to make our pushback impossible. We can't count on algorithms to become compatible with our human virtues. We need to have harder conversations and retain our imaginations to see technology not as a savior, but as a reflection of ourselves. Personally, I'm not seeking redemption through technology, but that's the desire of the world, isn't it? I'm looking towards grace, okay? A divine invitation to grace that we all can accept. And it's the only medicine for our desire to save ourselves from ourselves. So here's the path forward. From the utopian dream to the vigilant reality. At the same time that we become lost in this rapidly changing landscape, we have to figure out how to confront the uncomfortable truths about our relationship with technology. The AI dystopia is not a distant fantasy. It is an encroaching reality manifesting through daily interactions as systemic impulses, precisely in the guise of benign scenarios that promise effortless futures. If we relinquish our narratives and allow an indifferent intelligence to dictate our values, we risk not just losing our agency, but our very essence as human beings. We will become more like chimpanzees in an algorithmic zoo, specimens in a cosmic petri dish, so to speak. This journey calls for a deep reflection on our moral condition. We must recognize that the technology we birthed can only reflect our values, our fears, and our failings. The rebuilding of a moral framework rests squarely on our shoulders. It insists we cultivate compassion, responsibility, and humility in every choice we make. Our greatest strength lies in the connections we forge and the stories we tell. In an era where AI threatens to overshadow our narratives, we must commit to reclaiming them, ensuring that they are grounded in our shared humanity. If we wish to build systems that amplify our better angels, it must begin with a conscious effort to engage deeply with the moral and spiritual dimensions of our lives, recognizing that the benign is often the most deceptive path to perdition. Embracing our humanity, a countercultural renaissance, okay? Let's talk about it. Ultimately, our survival in the face of AI demands a countercultural renaissance rooted in our humanity. The AI dystopia may loom ominously, but it is our collective responsibility to ensure that it doesn't define our future. We must prioritize character over convenience and neighborliness over anonymity. Most of us don't even know our own neighbors anymore. Let us return to the fundamental truths of what it means to be human, in the most aspirational sense, which happens to be the wisest. Sustaining our stories, nurturing our relationships, fostering spaces that celebrate our shared existence. Amidst the rising tide of technology, our best defense is to recognize that we are not simply subjects of the machines we create, we are the authors of our collective narrative. To navigate this transitional era, we must turn our gaze inward, aligning our actions with the principles that honor our true nature. And here's a warning, okay? Watch. We must watch. We must be vigilant. Be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. See that there are men behind the scenes with great influence who would read the word Renaissance not merely with a scoff or a shrug, but with a much deeper and active disdain. A few of the men I mentioned above are actively opposed to fundamental truths of what it means to be human. And it is in those truths, it's those truths that they wish to erase. I give this warning to the Christian believer in particular. It is we who are in the most danger of being fleeced because it is our calling to resist their path. Our view of the world is the one most dangerous to them. At the same time, we are the target for duping and appropriation. Some of these men will pretend to be our protectors, to be one of us, but they merely seek to distort the faith from the inside, as much as they can gain access to it. We would be wise to consider the temptation of Christ. We are falling for each of those temptations. And remember, Satan used Scripture to tempt the Son of God. If Christ came to redeem humanity, fully human himself, the Antichrist is the complementary opposite. Make those comparisons. Okay, so this isn't just for Christians. I will speak to Christians because that is a personal mission within the mission of mine. And I'm sure many of you non-Christians will actually really appreciate it. And concerned Christians who share my concerns will definitely appreciate it too. But the narrative, the powers that be, it's getting mixed and mashed with religion increasingly so. And it's a very dangerous thing. So I have to speak to Christians because Christians have big targets on them to be manipulated right now. And Christians are being manipulated. So, to everyone, this is for everybody. We are expendable to them. We are expendable and redundant. And they have no plans to take us with them into the future. And that's why they have this devout theology of exclusion. They are anti-human being. And that is the only true way to say it. So indeed, wake up and keep watch. Be the light of the world. Be the salt of the earth. Be the sheep amongst wolves. Do not conform to the patterns of this age. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Humanize. Rehumanize. Love your neighbor. Peace be with you. This is the Great Rehumanization. More to come, more to come, and more to come.
I blur distinctions of us and them.